started recording?
Yep, started. Yeah, I hope everyone can see my screen.
Yes.
Yes,
Mm.
see.
Yes.
Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, wherever you have joined from. Thanks for joining. I know it's a Saturday. Some of you it's early morning, some of you it's maybe midnight. I'm not sure, depending on the time zone you are in. So, welcome to the Kochi MuleSoft Meetup group. So, today we are going to present a very interesting session on MuleSoft Hyperautomation, which is very hot in the market right now. And how can we integrate this RPA and with Composer, all this stuff? That's what we're gonna see here. Okay. So, just a safe harbor statement. So remember, the speakers and hosts are just organizing this meetup in individual capacity only, and we are not representing our companies here. Okay, so the representation is strictly for learning purpose. So organizer or presenter, we are not holding in responsibility that same solution work for your business requirements. So definitely you have to come up with your own, requirements. You have to contact the respective teams in MuleSoft for these solutions. And the presentation is not meant for any promotional activities, just for and some housekeeping stuff. So definitely we are going to record this meetup and it will be uploaded to events page within 24 hours. So you can always come there and check it out. We will share the information in the LinkedIn, different social media platforms as well. And you can always submit your questions. You can ask at any time. We have chats enabled. General tab is also there for chat. So you can have that question answers tab over there and try to make it more interactive. I know we have less participants today joined, but hopefully we will have the numbers increase in the meantime in the course. I mean during the the in the next couple of minutes, and do give us feedbacks. And definitely you will get an option to rate our meetup session by filling the feedback form at the end of the day. And definitely we love feedback, so it's our bread and butter. Okay, so once again, thanks everyone for joining. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Myself, Sandeep Krishnan. I am a co-meetup leader for Kochi Meetup Group. Basically, I work as a technical instructor for in Salesforce, and I also part of NJC Labs. Okay, that's my company, and I do work as a integration lead over there as well. And I do have 10 plus years of experience as a MuleSoft developer, integration experience definitely. And I work as a MuleSoft developer. At the same time, I'm doing multiple roles in the organization. So that's all about me. So I will just leave it to others. Now we have two more co-leaders are there. So please, Supriya and Sumit, please do the needful. Thank you.
So, hello, good morning, good afternoon, first of all, and thanks everybody for joining. I understand it's Saturday. So, as you can see on screen, I'm a Kochi MuleSoft Meetup leader. I have not 8 but 9 years of experience in integration and API technologies. So that's about my certifications. I'm developer, integration, and platform certified. Currently, I'm working in Accenture UK. And thank you, and I welcome you all. And I hope you will take a nice experience out of this meetup. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Supriya. Myself, Sumit Ahuja. I have 7+ years of experience in integrations and API technologies. I work here in Singapore for Johnson and Johnson. I am currently as an integration lead for APAC region, and the MuleSoft leader for Singapore as well. So we do conduct meetups there as well, along with Kochi. Um, Thanks for joining on Saturday, and hope you'll enjoy the session and make it more interactive. And for in case if your friends and colleagues are missing it out, please do find the video recording links on our event page so that you can catch it later. Thanks.
Thank you, Supriya. Thanks, Sumit. Okay. So with that, I will just now hand it over to Sam. So Sam is going to be the speaker today. So he has got a lot of experience with this domain, this hyper automation domain. So Sam, I'll just stop sharing now. So probably you can
Sure.
share your screen and you can take it over from here. Okay. Thank you so much.
Sure. Sure. I'll just pick up the sharing. One moment. Entire screen. Share. Okay, perfect. I think my screen should be visible. It is visible to me. Just reconfirm if it is
Yep.
there.
We can.
Yeah,
Yes, it is.
perfect. So hi, hello everyone. I saw many chats in the chat box. So let's just start it off. Let's try to make it as interactive as possible. I would be constantly monitoring the chat also in between. And yeah, a short intro about me. I am from a manufacturing domain. I was developing integration solutions for per se manufacturing, also in IT. I'm basically a tech enthusiast, and from a MuleSoft point of view, I'm a MuleSoft certified developer, and I'm also a hyperautomation specialist certified. I'm working as integration consultant with NJC, and yeah, that's a small brief about me. I think uh, we should move on to the session today. So today is what we discuss about hyperautomation. So hyperautomation, as all of you know, is a very new product from Salesforce and MuleSoft, and we are all learning, being a new product. We have designed certain solutions, and this demo is a very small part of that particular use case that uh, I'm trying to present it to you. So without any further uh, wait, let's move on to it. So if we take a look at the agenda of this meetup, this is what we have currently. First, we will discuss about what is hyperautomation. So the way we would like to progress this session is understanding what is hyperautomation, figuring out certain benefits, then using one particular use case of hyperautomation. In our case, we are going to demo for MuleSoft Composer with RPA, how you can make an RPA solution, why are we making that particular RPA solution. Uh, that part is the important part. And then we will see how to design individual processes, RPA and Composer, then invoking RPA from Composer, and then the demo. But meanwhile, while I'm explaining on the RPA and Composer, we will definitely go towards the platform and see what those things mean. So what is hyperautomation? So if you see, it is a mix of tools from MuleSoft and from Salesforce per se. So you have the best of two combined together to make a complete automation solution. So for example, when you make a RPA solution, that is your RPA automation. When you make a composer solution, it is your composer automation. But when you mix and match both of the tools to make a solution, that is what you call as a hyper automation. So in brief, when we talk about this, so flow orchestration is a product from Salesforce. Flow builder and Einstein is also a product from Salesforce. So what does this do is, from flow builder you could automate your business processes, and when you have business processes connecting different compartments or different departments across, you could reuse your flows that you have built using something called as orchestration. So that is what is a flow orchestration and a flow builder. On top of this, there is something called as an Einstein AI bot. So what does this Einstein AI bot do is, it uses something called as NLP and ML, that is the natural language processing and machine learning, and it is a front end bot that understands the customer inquiry. So it would be something like a bot which you would have seen while booking your tickets, or in some discussions, or some customer care service that you have. So you have an AI bot. That AI bot is connected to your flow, gets the particular requirement and gives you back the feedback. So those are the two elements of Salesforce that are part of hyper automation. Then you have something called as an RPA. So what is an RPA? Like, inside a business, it is not necessary that you have everything which is consumable. Like, consumable in form of an API call, or consumable in a form of like a particular server where you just put in things and it comes back to you. In many of the cases, there is something called as legacy systems. So this legacy systems cannot be accessed by any other thing but just by the UI. So someone has to go there, do some work, and get out the result, and carry on with that work. So MuleSoft is trying to provide a solution for that, and that is specifically that what we are going to see today. How is RPA helping us to take data from that legacy system and make it consumable? Then we have something called as the Anypoint platform, where we have all the APIs which we develop in our studio, deploy it to platform, and we design, develop, deploy, monitor all those APIs. It is the standard MuleSoft consumption model that we know. Apart from Anypoint APIs, there is something called as a MuleSoft Composer, which we will be looking into today. Why MuleSoft Composer is, MuleSoft Composer has certain pre-built SaaS connectors which are available. So when you have simple integrations with on simplistic SaaS applications which has its connectors available, Composer is the solution to go for. But but say you have something called, you need to make something for the organization, you are connecting to the database, your integrations are complex, that's when you go for the Anypoint platform. So the reason for me to explain all of these tools of hyperautomation is that you need to understand what is the tool that you need. So in the entire hyperautomation concept, the right solution is not the only answer. The answer is using the right tool for the right solution. So that is what we are looking into. Going on to this particular slide. Now, this is our use case that we are going to look into. In this use case, uh, I have taken a scenario where we are in a particular manufacturing environment. So what you could see is, you could see a particular engineer, or a particular junior engineer in a manufacturing production environment, and one of the part of his job is to go and check on a system. This system is a legacy system. The system was set up 10 years before, and all the machines of the particular of that particular manufacturing environment are connected to the system. Part of his job is to go and check for the production parameters. So on his shop floor, per se, there are 50 machines. So he has to go to this system, open individual machines, and see if they are functioning okay or if they are not functioning okay. So this is a very simplistic terminology that I have kept for an understanding purpose. Uh, so every shift, like for like between every 8 hours, for a production company that works for 24 hours, every particular engineer goes here and he checks that if they are working okay or not. In case they are working okay, he doesn't have to do anything. But in case the system is not working okay, there is a problem. What he is doing is, he is informing the manufacturing support through ServiceNow. So for systems which are okay, it's okay, not doing anything. For systems which are not okay, he raises a ticket. The catch here is, though it is a very redundant process, the problems don't come always, they come once in a while. But check is extremely important. So in this process, what we are trying to do is, we are trying to set this part of the problem with an RPA. By setting this on an RPA, what it enables us is that we are automating this entire thing of reporting. And now this is something called as a visual check. So he is looking into the system even if he is able to download a particular report, it's not helping him. So he's looking into a system, checking if it is okay or checking if it is not okay. So in that case, there are possibilities of him missing the process. So to avoid all of that, we set it up as an RPA process. So this entire thing that a person is doing is now done by an RPA. So this redundant task is automated by using an RPA. However, this is not our entire solution. This is not what we want. We also want to raise a ticket in ServiceNow. We also want to check if things are okay. And if things are okay, we don't want to raise a ticket. This can be accomplished in two ways. One, you could design a solution in Studio and raise a ticket. But that is like a lot of work for doing a small task of like raising a ticket on ServiceNow. So for that, what we do is we encapsulate this entire process inside Composer. Composer does a simple thing. Composer invokes this particular RPA process. Composer checks if everything is okay. If everything is okay, it doesn't do anything. But if there is a problem, it invokes a ticket inside ServiceNow. So this is the overall automation of the checks that needs to be done in the production parameter, and this is how we will be doing it using a mixture of RPA and Composer. Before I go ahead, I just wanted to check that if anyone has any questions or any clarifications till this part, because this part is important in understanding the solution that we will be going to design based upon this particular problem. So please use the chat box and let me know if you have any issues till here in understanding the problem statement.
Sam, just I have one question.
Yeah,
Like this hyper automation will be consisting of, I mean, combination of RPA plus Composer. That's why we are calling it hyper automation, right? Let's say if
exactly.
you want to go with RPA plus Anypoint Studio, but if you have any complex mechanism to do, this is straightforward that we are dealing with service now. But else service now we have something else, so it is okay, right? We go with RPA plus Anypoint Studio also. That is also will be
Exactly.
called hyper automation, right?
Yes, yes. Even that will be called hyper automation. So the term hyper is added before automation because we are using a combination of tools. That's why it's called hyper
Great, great.
automation. It could be
Like
anything. It could be RPA invoked via Salesforce through Composer through any of the mixes and matches. It can be any of the mixes and matches. But the point is to get your solution in the most effective manner with using the whilst using the least resources and making it, of course, easy. Yeah.
got it. Thank you.
Okay. So I didn't see any questions on the chat. So then I hope the
We can
problem
move on.
statement.
We can move on, Sam.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. So now I kept on saying legacy system. So what legacy system are we talking here? So I have a small image that I just want to showcase if it can be seen. So this is inside a Windows based system. Of course, I cannot run the system now. We don't have any machines, we don't have any units here, but this is something like this. So a operator has to go and click on this all of this resources and see okay, not okay, okay, not okay, okay, not okay. However, this particular system also has a capability that you could generate a CSV report. But even though the system generates a CSV report, it is on its local system. The particular report is not on a the system is not on a network drive. It is not somewhere where it is accessible. That's the problem. And to address this problem is why we are using RPM. This being a Windows based system, we are going to build a solution and deploy RPA in this particular system. And what RPA will do, RPA will generate that CSV file. It will move that CSV file into a network folder, which is consumable, and we will see how that process takes place further in the demo. So I just had a screenshot for everyone to see that when we talk about legacy systems, what are they and why it cannot be consumed into an API and all those stuffs. Okay, so moving ahead. So like I said, so that's why it's called a hyper automation. So why hyper automation? The biggest benefit of hyper automation is seamless integration. So that is the first uh, major benefit of hyper automation, because it is easy to integrate across platforms, across tools, and get you your particular customized solution. The first important step. How are we enabling integration in our particular use case? Using Composer. Second, increase productivity. So imagine a person going and checking this every time. Of course, it is very interesting for him to do it maybe for the first month of when he is doing it, but then it gets absolutely redundant. That particular person's productivity could have been used for any other task, but here he is wasting it looking into that one particular screen and doing that redundant task. So increase productivity. The other important feature of hyper automation is how are we enhancing customer service. So here we are enhancing customer service, in our case that particular engineers his customer service, by automatically raising a ticket on ServiceNow. Excuse me. So that's how we are enhancing his customer service. Agility and scalability. Composer and RPA together, as we all know, is absolutely agile. So tomorrow, if we want to change the system, tomorrow, if we say, for example, we want to add one more machine, we just need to duplicate the process, and that increases. Data-driven insights. Now there is a systematic uh, capture of data, and the data is being provided, and the data is being recorded inside the ServiceNow record. So you have an entire data driven insight available, say 1 year across 50 machines multiplied by 360 days, multiplied by number of shifts that it has. You have all the data of whenever a failure happens. So that's basically what happens then. Now what are we doing? So like I explained, we check for parameters, and what RPA does to replace this is it generates a CSV file, moves it to a network folder, and converts it into a consumable format. So that's what our RPA process will be doing in our scenario. So to replicate that scenario, uh, what I made is, if you can see here, so because we don't have a system, we cannot generate that particular CSV file, but I do have a CSV file here. So if I particularly open this particular CSV file, you know that you have a number, you have type, alarm, and your text is in two different languages. You have it in German, you have it in English, and so on. So that is basically your CSV file that you have right now. This is your local machine, which cannot be accessed, and this is your shared. This is your network shared folder that can be accessed by different tools and different programs that are there. So what the first part of generating the CSV file and putting it here, that we will do manually, and then the remaining part we will set up RPA to do. So that's how we will be doing that part. Okay, so moving ahead, if there are any doubts, please feel free to put it on the chat, like if there are anything. Cool. So moving ahead, how do we design these tools? So to design these tools, was to design the solutions. So to design the solutions, RP has different phases of design. So you have something called as an evaluation phase. What does an evaluation phase do? The evaluation phase essentially checks that is your product that you are designing uh, the most suited character for an RPA. For that, we do something called as a cost qualifier benefits. So what is basically the cost qualifier benefit? So if I have to just show that, if you see here, so the first step is you need to evaluate the process, whatever process you are evaluating, the process that you want to set. So you go to the process evaluation setup here, And here is when you first create your evaluation. So say you create and say you are making something called as a demo. Like this is not a final one that we will make. I have already pre-built the one that we are going to be demoing, but it's just for understanding. So you set it up, you put up your demo, you select your categories. Say you call this, that name is there. So you select this category, you say okay, and once you create okay, you need to put up the cost section. So what does this cost section say? It's like how much time is being consumed for a particular process. So say we put the time of, it takes a person 5 minutes to do a check of say 10 different machines across. And assuming say someone is earning like say $2,000 per month, if you divide it by 20, and roughly if you estimate for 5 minutes, roughly say we are losing $1 on a person. Frequency 30 days. You are doing 3 shifts in 30 days, so that is like 90, and you are doing it 8 times that particular day. So if you take more or less on those aspects, say if you put 150 as the frequency. If you see, every month a company is losing $150 on this particular process that they could have actually automated. So this is the process evaluation part that we say, starting with the cost. Then we look at the qualifiers of work. This is very important when designing an RPA process, to check if that process is suitable for RPA. The first step that you see is, what is the nature of work here? Is it judgment based or is it rule based? So there are certain pointers. So when you move these pointers, you see this particular dot on this side. This will keep on moving. So if it is in the, say in this area, somewhere like an amber, then that process may or may not qualify for RPA. But if it is something going towards the green area, yes, that is your process that needs to be automated via an RPA. And if it is directly on the red, absolutely no, that's not a RPA qualifier. So the first qualifier is nature of work. In our case, we are just checking if the systems are working fine, if the process is working fine. So it is not judgment based, it is absolutely rule based. So we set it up here. That's a rule based. Input output. How is our structure? It is a very structured format. Either you get alarms or you don't get alarms, and you get the information on a CSV file. So it is not unstructured or analog. It is more towards structured or digital. But because we cannot directly consume it as JSON, so let's not put it as complete file. We will put it somewhere here. Stability. How stable is the process? We don't want to RPA a process whose stability keeps on changing. And what do I mean by stability? Like today, what you are doing is you are checking that system and you are writing down the process. But maybe 5 months from now, you are saying, no, no, I don't want this system. I will make a new system. And based upon this new system, I am going to make a new process. Then again, after 5 months, you come back, no, no, let's not do this, let's do this. So RPA cannot be and should not be implemented on an unstable process. It should always be implemented on a stable process. The other example is that, like for example, you have a particular UI and your UI keeps changing. You cannot have RPA work on a UI that keeps changing. Whatever you do, wherever you implement your RPA, it needs to be stable. Our process has been stable for last 10 years. So it is an absolutely stable process. Data type. What kind of data are we trying to access? Is it an image? Is it a blurry image? Does that image keep changing? Like for example, if you know, there are certain processes when you go to do a ticket booking and you see something written in a particularly unstructured format every time you refresh. So if you want to log into that page, you cannot put an RPA bot there. You need to have a user intervention in that particular process. That interpretation and an RPA cannot do. So we need to figure out what our data type is. Is our data type a proper text or numbers, like in a particular digital consumable format, or it's like an image, and it depends upon the robo, and it depends upon the particular machine learning if you are going to put in and install in that. So that would be a very complicated process, but ours is not. Ours is in text and numbers, so that's our process. Now, once we have set up the qualifiers, we need to look at the particular output quality. Like, why are we making this process? Is it going to increase our output qualities because we need improvements, or like it's fine even if it is there or not there? It doesn't matter to us most. In our case, you could have the problems like if someone misses one particular alarm, and if this is a repetitive concern, like if say the head of the manufacturing unit thinks that this is a very very repetitive concern, then you have a urgent need and you need to deploy it right away. But if it's not, it's fine, you could deploy it at your point. Is the process complex or is the process simple? So you should not be setting up RPA processes where your process itself takes like hours to do by a bot. It should not be. Your processes should be as simple as possible, and it should be built in the most simplistic way as possible. So for us, we are just extracting a CSV and moving it to a network folder. So our process is not a complex process. So it sets up as a simple process. Then the last one is the risk. How high is your risk? Like, for example, if someone does not report an error, how high will be the risk? In our case, it is extremely important. But even if you miss it once because you do it in every 8 hours, it is not so high because the particular amount of time that we are doing it, our frequency is not there. So this would be our qualifiers. So when you set up all these qualifiers, you see where the process matrix stand, and this tells you that this is a good to go RPA process. So this is the part where you set up the qualifiers. Now, once you do this, you do a save. So after saving it, you can see you have this particular process, your identifiers and everything. Now, the way the structure works. So coming back to this, within the evaluation, we have standardized that this is a process that needs to be done. This is a RPA process. After evaluation, it needs to be designed, built, test, and sent for production. However, before doing all of this, that part needs to be assigned. And how do we assign it? You go here. As a particular project manager, I can approve this process. I am setting this, and now I can assign a project manager for this process. I assign it to myself, and because I just have me right now, and we go ahead and we say okay. And now, if you see here, the other symbols are gone. Now the process is assigned, and me being the project manager, the process is assigned to me. So I need to go to my RPA and go to my backlog for the processes that are assigned to me. For processes which are assigned to a team, you go to a team backlog. Yep. So because it's me, I go to here and I see which are the backlogs. So I come here, I see this is my backlog. So for this particular process, you have something called as a start automation. And I can also reject it. Like for example, if someone has assigned it to me, I don't want to pick it, I won't pick it, and I can reject that particular uh, setup. But I don't want to do that. I'll do start automation. The moment I say start automation, I move somewhere called as the design phase. So design phase is where I will document my requirements. And how do we do that? So we go to the design phase. I go here, and now being the project manager and also being someone who is building the entire process, I give all of this authority to myself. That's all. I don't want to use a process board, so I don't use a process board, and I say a save. Done. So now once that is done, you could open the process and you come to this particular page. Once you come to this particular page, you can select this and you can do your record. Record is the part of design. So either the business team does this, or like someone inside the business team who is there to document all the requirements that I've told you previously does this part. So once that part is done, you do a design on it. However, because we know the requirements, we are not going to do the design. But in case if you wanted to do the particular design, you just click on this record BPMN. Your RPA recorder, which is there inside your system, will be directly linked to your studio, and you can record your requirements like your business documentations and everything. So assuming that I have finished my recordings and I have made my design, then it is the time to move for something called as the build phase. So uh, what happens in a build phase? So for that we have an app called RPA Builder. RPA Builder is also your Windows based desktop app, and inside the RPA Builder, whatever requirements were designed using the recorder, a RPA developer will understand and he will build the process for that particular thing. Now if I open my builder and I go to my repositories, whatever I have, you see there is nothing called Meetup 1 that we created here. So sorry, demo 1 that we created here. That is because the current phase is the design phase. The design phase needs to be moved to the build phase. So let me publish this. The moment I publish this, I need to confirm this, say release to build. This part goes to the build phase. So if I come here and I do a refresh, if you see there is nothing here right now, but if I do a refresh, you see I got something called as a demo 1. So that is exactly what I got in this particular process. I open this and you will see the same structure here. Of course, now I need to go there and I need to build my processes. That process we will do in the subsequent presentation. So it goes to build. Assuming that the build is done, uh, we move to the test phase, and after the test phase we move to the production phase. What we do in this, we will come in detail during the demo part with a particular solution that I've already built, and we could discuss more during that part. uh, does anyone have any questions or queries till this part, or like are you able to understand? If you're able to understand, can you just please write yes in the chat? uh, uh, that would be nice. I could get an understanding of if you're understanding the concepts till now. We'll wait for a minute. Thank you, Monica. It's yes. Selma, Venkatesh, thank you.
Yeah, Sam, I think we do understand. I think we got a lot of responses from the chat.
Perfect. So we'll carry on. Just taking a bit.
All right.
Perfect. So moving to the next slide. So now we understood what are we going to do in an RPA, what it is going to do when XYZ. Uh, what are we going to do in Composer? So this entire process, we need to put it on a Composer. So how are we going to do that? We invoke an RPA. An RPA will do everything that I explained you just now. Then inside the Composer will make a decision. Do I want to raise a ServiceNow ticket for an issue, or I do nothing? So that's what the Composer will do, and that's exactly the solution that we will build inside the Composer. So what are the steps of design in a Composer? Composer is the most simplistic and the most easy tool that you could use. Everything is there on the UI. and it is the fastest thing that you could, I mean, create in a particular MuleSoft environment. Like for example, if you get a particular hyperautomation exam question, which is the most easy solution to develop out of all of the solution, it is definitely MuleSoft Composer. So the first thing in a composer that you do is you create a connection, you choose a trigger, then you define the actions that you want. After that, you test your flow, activate your flow, and then monitor the final behavior of the process. So that's basically what a composer does. I'll quickly go to the particular UI of the composer if I have that open. Yeah, I do have it open, and we have this particular flow. So, like we saw in that particular thing, you choose or create a connection. So that's our connections, and what these are, we will come into details later. Then there is something called as you choose a trigger. That's my connection, and that's my trigger. So my trigger is based upon a schedule. Then you define your action. So you have your action. You see something called as an action component. Our action is to invoke a RPA flow. So that's our action. Then you test your flow. Testing is something that we will do, and then activate the flow and deploy. So once you are happy, everything is working fine, you can activate and you can deploy your flow, and then you can monitor the behavior of your flow. However, we will be doing till testing our flow, because we don't have a requirement to activate or monitor, because we don't have anything set up on that, but we will do the entire process till testing the flow. So great. So moving forward on this part.
We have a couple of questions in the chat actually. Probably we can
Okay,
have.
so let me see that. Can we use RPA manager as well as RPA recorder for design? Uh, for design, I think this is Venkatesh's question. Can we use RPA manager as well as RPA recorder for the design? RPA recorder is used for the design. RPA recorder is part of the RPA manager. So what happens is, once you record all your requirements inside the RPA recorder, there is an option on the RPA recorder. You can send it back to your RPA manager. So your RPA manager is your cloud-based platform that is there. You can access it from anywhere and everywhere. But for you to use your RPA recorder, whenever you install RPA in your system, there are three tools that you need to set up in your system. Number one, RPA recorder. Number two, RPA builder. And number three, the RPA bot, wherever you want to deploy it. So you record your requirements inside your RPA recorder, and there's an option to deploy it back to your RPA platform. It will go and sit in your RPA platform, which is managed by your RPA manager. Let me know, Venkatesh, if I answered your question. Manikandan Subramanian, design will be a screen record by business. Exactly. Design will be a screen record by the business, and that's why on that slide you could see that it is done by the business part. Design is always done by the business part, not by the builder part. So it could be something like, Manikandan, you telling me that I want to do this in this way, this way, this way, this way. As a builder, as someone who is the developer, will not understand your requirements. So for that, you will have to document it. What is the way of documenting it? You take screenshots, you write your points, you put your screen inside that, and all these things will come to me when it goes to the build phase. So when it goes to the build phase, the previous phase was design. So as a builder, I will see that if I want to keep the process the way it is, or if I want to change it in a particular format and build it, but the requirement, the input and output will remain the same. So that's how it will be. So if I answered your question, Manikandan, just let me know. Yeah. So in short, design will be a screen record by business. So that's the answer. But why is it? Is just the explanation, extra explanation that I gave. Perfect. So I think that's it. Sandeep, are there any other question? No,
No,
right?
sir, we can move on. I think we can move on.
Perfect. So this is the MuleSoft Composer part, so that we did. And yeah, Composer is quite easy. Let's go. There are certain things that I've kept on the screen because, of course, I cannot uh, show you what is the user ID I'm putting, what is the password I'm putting, of course, the credentials I don't want to expose. So, to invoke an RPA process from Composer, in our case, we have two things that Composer should do. One, invoke a MuleSoft RPA process. Number two, invoke ServiceNow. So, what are the things you require to configure the connector? So for a MuleSoft RPA, you definitely need your ID password of MuleSoft to log in and do everything inside that. You need to have your manager instance. There is something called as an API URL. If you have installed RPA in your system, you will know what these things are. RPA API URL, and then you need the user API key, which is also present in your manager. So all these details you will get from your RPA manager. You can get these details and you can configure your connector inside your Composer. ServiceNow, I'm sure many of you have set up ServiceNow. You just need your instance URL and you need your username and password. So let me see if my ServiceNow instance is still ready, because it's a developer instance. It has a tendency to go to sleep. So yeah, good, it is awake. So that's what will be there. So putting everything into perspective, before we move into our demo, what will the Composer do? It will invoke your RPA process. What will the RPA do? It will extract your data from your legacy system and convert it into a consumable format and send it to ServiceNow. So that is basically the solution that we are going to build. And some part of it I have already shown so that we don't go up and down and you have a clear understanding till this point. uh, the final thing is what we are going to do. As far as the demo, I have already created a demo. So first we will see the working, how it works. Then we will go back on the demo and look on every step that helped you to reach to this particular part of the demo. The reason we are doing it is because I am invoking the RPA bot on my session. And because I'm doing it on my session and not on something called as a secure session, it is possible that it can close my screens and do something which we don't want to happen. So first, I will show the complete output of the demo that is being built, and then we will go step by step backwards. Yeah. So that's how we are going to move on this part. Before we go to the demo, there is something called as global variable that is available on the RPA. So the global variable passes values to the access parameters, and access parameters takes it out of the global variable. So what is so what is activity parameter, what is global variable is also something that we will see in the demo. So time to move to the demo. Okay, so let's see. RPA manager, Composer, yeah, everything is up. So I just wanted to show the individual parts that we have. So what we have is we have a trigger. This is a Composer UI that we are seeing right now. So on the Composer UI, we have something called as a trigger. The trigger can be set for different intervals, but it is very important to know that you cannot customize your intervals inside the trigger that is pre-built inside the Composer. You can set for the slots which are given, 15, 30, 45, and all the way till 30 days. But for example, if you tell me you want to set up a scheduler for 36 minutes, it's not possible. So that is a limitation of Composer. That is when you use individual UI tools, you will know what should be used for what cases and what purposes. That second is like we will be invoking this particular RPA process. So our RPA process, I have already pre-set the connector, the name of the process, the output that we will be using. The output we are using directly as a response in this flow. There is also a possibility to poll the response, but we have a short RPA process. And polling the RPA response would be for some processes which take a lot of time. But the way you saw for what processes you should design RPA, it should not be for a complex process. And then come down, you look at the conditions, like if there is no value, then for example, you have a value, then you make a ServiceNow ticket. If you don't have a value, you don't do anything. How we accomplish that is something called as a if else block that Composer has. So inside the effects block, you set up your service now. Very straightforward. You set up your action. So it needs to create a new record. Where will you create a new record? That is your table name. And what is the value that you're passing comes inside this. So we have selected for short description, and that's how it does. Uh, Apart from that, there is something, if you remember in the step where we are converting CSV to a JSON format so that it can be made consumable for ServiceNow, that you can make use of any REST call that does that. So in our case, what we will do, we will consume the entire CSV file and convert it to a JSON. So for doing that, I have already set up a local instance on my studio, and this local instance has a listener. It reads the CSV file and it transforms the message. Uh, where do we use it? How do we connect it? We will come when we go into the detailed steps of the demo. So let's just use this. And so I have a local machine and a shared folder available here. So I'll go on this and I will go here and do a test. So let's do a test. But inside the test, now when you see, I don't have anything inside my local machine. So I'll go here, copy my alarm CSV file. This is something which my system will do. I don't have my manufacturing system, so I'm just putting it here. On top, if you see here, right now, the Composer is processing your entire request that you want to process. So if you see, it removed from the local machine, put it on the shared folder, consumed it using our REST call that we have right now, and it will now generate a ServiceNow ticket. So let's wait for it to generate a ServiceNow ticket. That's done, and now it's saving your results. So this is what we get. What have we got? We can expand this test output. We get an execution ID, status. This is the destination path that we have, the name of the file, what output the REST API gave us, because we wanted to convert it into a consumable format. In our case, we are converting it into a JSON format. Excuse me. And then you have your source path. So we picked it up from source path, moved it to destination part, converted it into a consumable format, and then after that consumption, we have given it to ServiceNow. So that's what my invocation of RPA process did for me. Now, when I expand my ServiceNow, I see that I have set up a ticket with this particular incident request. So let's copy this. Let's go here. So basically, I am assuming that we understand ServiceNow, but if it's not, it's very straightforward. You can have your ServiceNow instance created. There is step-by-step explanation, YouTube videos for that, and you could see how it is. It is free of cost to use the developer versions, and you could work out on that. So you go here, you go all. What did we set up? We registered an incident. So we go to incidents, and here we put our ticket number. We press enter. Go all, put our ticket number, press enter. And there we have our incident registered. Select the incident. You can see the short description that we gave for that incident is available. So the issue that we had is that our particular spindle was not ready for operation. So that is now assigned. You could, of course, change other fields if you want, your impact, your incident state, and everything. And that's the way it will work. So what an operator had to do, or what an engineer had to do, or what a junior engineer had to do, RPA in combination with Composer has made this happen. But there is also a point I saw that how we can plug in a REST API call. So I kept that. So even that REST API call is part of this structure. So this is the overall solution that we got. Is everyone clear with the solution that we have made here? Then we can go back to the, like, I can break the process, and we can see how we got till this point. Yep, let me know in the comments, please. Or is there something that you want to know specifically inside that? If it's okay, if you can just put okay, and we can move forward and see how we reach till this point. Where in Composer have you invoked? No, I have not invoked Anypoint Studio in Composer. Anypoint Studio is part of RPA. I will come to the build phase of the RPA. We will have to move it back to the build phase from the production phase. Then I can show in the RPA builder how I have invoked the Anypoint Studio. Cool. Any other questions? You can ask your questions here. If it is something that I'm going to show you just now, I can tell that. But if it is something that whatever is in your mind, you can put in the chat, and yeah, you can pick it up from there. Yeah, I'll monitor for 1 more minute, and then we can move on. I think it's fine. It's okay to continue.
Yes, Sam.
Sandeep, we move ahead, right?
Can
Yeah,
move.
cool.
Yes, yes. Good.
Cool, fine. So this was the entire solution that we developed. Now the question is, how did we reach to this particular solution point, right? So the final solution demo which we had to do, we did it in the first. Now we'll go back, we will break things, and we will see how it was made. So let's close this. First of all, we need to go to the RPA manager. So for a deployed, so my bot is deployed, my bot is in production, and that's why everything works. But how do you reach till the point of production, right? How do you see where that bot is deployed, who that process is assigned to, blah blah blah. So we go here inside my RPA, and we can look at my processes. It has by default 25 entries. So here, this is the process that I just showed you, and this process is already in production. So now what we do, we open that. Here you can see that I've already deployed a process into production, and it is deployed on a bot. So if I just make it smaller, what do we have? We have a production configuration. How we set it up, we'll come to it. We can see our run results here. Go here. It says one you ran, one is success. That's a happy case because that's what we did. So we ran it once, and we have no failures. We have sum of one. So if we go here and if we run this again, let's do a test. So for doing the test, I have my local machine, I have my shared folder. Go to my here, pick it, put it here, and it's processing. It should run one more time. So the total count of runs that we see on the number of times a bot has run should have now increased to 2. So it came to the shared folder, it will take it, delete it, and that's how. So in short, if you see, you are also doing a folder management. So that would be also one more use case scenario of RPA, like how do you do folder management? RPA can do it for you. So that's there. So let's go to the composer. Now it's saving the results. Came here, done that. Now you have new incident, the next incident. Last time it was 15, now it's 16. So it did that. But that's not what we were looking at. Now let's update it. If you see here, now we have 2 success, no failures, and that's your total sum. Yeah. All other things are here. But in case I had a failure, now in case I had a failure, I want to see that, oh, maybe I did not do something correctly. So I need to move back to the phase before the production phase, that is the test phase. Directly you could go here, you could go back to your test phase. You confirm just to say that you move back to test. Now, when you move back to test, you are no more in production mode. Now you are on a test mode. Inside this test, what is the test plan that I created for the test to happen. So we'll go on this. We'll see here the test plans that are created. Yeah. I'm not going to change any of it. I will go back to the build phase, show you how the build is done, and then we will do build, test, and production, because we already did evaluate and we discussed about the uh, design phase inside the RPA recorder. So let me cancel this. And I'm like, no, I don't want to move to production phase. I want to go to build phase. So I already have my builder open. So inside my builder, I don't have the process now. Any process that has been moved to test or production will not be visible in builder. Any process that is behind the build phase, that either it is an evaluate phase or on the design phase, even that won't be visible inside the builder. So let's go down. Let's go back to build. So when you go to the build phase, you see that there is something which was already there. So let's go here. Let's do a refresh. And we have something called as Meetup that came up. Yeah. So we'll open it. Uh, yeah. No. Yeah. Let's download it. So this is the process that we built. The symbol that you see here with the two gears, it means it's a bot process. There is no user interaction here. You could also have a user interaction. For example, like I said, when you enter a particular credential that you don't want it to be there, or else you can manage your credential there, but then you have to enter the text the way it is, and a bot cannot do that for you. You can have a user task set up there, and the user can do that, but a bot will not do. So it's not a completely bot automated process, but it is semi user automated process, or something where a user needs to take a call. Okay, you need to do this or not. So then the bot goes ahead and do it. We don't have any of that process. We have kept a simplistic case. But in case if we want to see how a user process is being used, if you go inside the RPA self learn, which is there inside the MuleSoft trainings, the use case there tells you how do you navigate through a web page or through a desktop application, and then how do you have a user to put inputs for you. So that thing is available. Let's go inside this particular process. I did a double click on that, waiting for it to enter. So here you have something called, so there are three different sections inside this bot process. Something called as a workflow initialization. So this is similar to your programming stuffs. What do you define? What all you want to be there? You want your parameters, you want your variables, what all you are going to use inside your program, you first define it. So that is your initialization. Then you have your activity workflow. Activity workflow is nothing but where your body is, like where you are doing the actual process. So all your systems, all your tools, everything will be done inside this activity workflow. Workflow finalization. So this is something like your error handler that you have. So certain run, if a run succeeds, what you want to do, if a run fail, what you want to do, how you want to handle your errors, and those things are done inside your workflow in your workflow finalizations. We are going to talk about the activity workflow and the four different steps that has been defined in our process. The first step is to move file. From where did I get this? There is something called as a toolbox. And on the toolbox, if you see, there are n number of operations that are available for app automation, checks, control, document. You can do your Excel operations and so on and so forth. So you can go in here and you can do your checks. But the part is uh, RPA is not like free. You need to have a. I'm not sure if it has a trial version. I don't think it has a trial version. RPA is a license thing. So if you have a license, then you can go in here and you can do your stuffs. What have we used? We have used some of the standard ones for the processes that we are doing. First, we wanted to create a file, but because we don't have a system, we cannot create a file. So we started with move file. So move file is the process. What we did here is happening. So from local machine, it moved to something called as a shared folder. So this first part was done from move file. what is the configuration of the move file? We define the path, we define the file name, and we define the destination part. So here, so there is something called as a source part, a destination part, and the file name. Where did it come from? Where can I see? What are these? So for that, you have to go in something called as activity parameters. Activity parameters is what I showed on, I think this part of the thing. Yeah. If you see here, I told there is something called as activity parameter and global variable, and we will come to it on a later stage. So this is what we have as an activity parameter, right? So this is the activity parameter. So the activity parameter that we are using here are set up here. And this, from where is that coming? You can go here. So these are the activity parameters for your individual setups, correct? So like, for example, if you wanted to make one more task, say we'll make one more bot task. So it is very simple. You select this bot task, you put it here, you drag and drop, set that there. Perfect. You give it a name. You give it a name like, for example, test. I could not come up with any other name. So yeah, let's call it a test. So when you select this test, you see there is absolutely nothing there. It's not there. And if you go to activity parameter, this activity parameters are not used for this particular bot process that are there. But it is definitely used for this particular bot process that we had, right? So if you go here, so the activity parameters are used here. So individually, you can select which activity parameters you want to use for your process and which activity parameters you don't want to use for your process. But where is the overall list of the parameters that are available? It is available here, something called as activity parameters here. So here we have defined the source, destination path, file name, name, everything. So this is my source part, my destination part, my file name, and so on and so forth. So do that. We set that particular connector up. And in case you have any doubt at any of the steps, just feel free to put it on the chat. I am continuously monitoring the chat. So I will involve that in my explanation in case I forgot. Then coming back to this question, where was the REST call made? I think I did have this question and I said it is done on the RPA. So inside RPA, there is something called as a particular REST call, this part. So you can do a REST call. So how did we do that? I set up here, I had my method, what I wanted to have, uh, because it's in my local, it's a simple 8081 call with an endpoint of convert. So I call this, and I don't have any JSON body or something, but if you have, you can definitely pass those. You can pass your header parameters, you can pass your JSON body, whatnot. In our case, it's a file. So we don't need to attach a file here. We just need the path for that file for Anypoint Studio to pick up the file and convert to a JSON. So we don't have a body, but it's a post request that we set up here. So now this has done that. Now we have a REST call here. Then I have set up a variable. Variable is just to save the output that I get from the REST call. So to save that, I have set up a variable, and this variable I had predefined in my activity parameter. And after everything is done, I wanted to clean up my system. So I did my movement from my local file. It moved to my shared folder. So from a individualistic machine, it has moved to a place where it can now be accessed by, in our case, Anypoint Studio, because that is the place where it can connect. It cannot connect to the machine which is on the shop floor, but it can definitely connect to the shared folder. So we moved it to shared folder. We did what we wanted to do with a REST call, converted it into a JSON format. And then after everything is done, I don't want my shared folder to keep on filling, because in a real case scenario, you don't have one machine, you have hundreds of machines. And every time you put for one call, after an year, you will have been, your folder would be flooding. So either you put it here or you move it to some dump area that you want to dump. But in our case, we deleted it. So we deleted that particular part. So that's the overall thing that RPA did in our case scenario. So is everything clear in the RPA steps that we followed to build this process? Or are there any questions? if I see, can you please once again show the option to see all defined APIs? Option to see all defined APIs. What do you mean by that? Like, can you mean the REST call? How the REST call was set up? Oh, activity parameters. Yeah. So whenever you are designing a process, say for example, let's start from scratch, right? Say this is a new process I got, or something I want to append in this particular process. So I'll go here and I will say activity parameters. So activity parameters is nothing. It's a particular variable that is used inside the MuleSoft RPA builder, and that is for things that you want to assign values to. That's why it's a variable value. Now say I want to use a new parameter. So I will just go here and I have different options of what kind of parameters I want to set up inside my activity parameter. So I say I want to put up a alphanumeric variable and say this alphanumeric variable, I call it a demo. I can write a short description. Why did I make this variable? It's because I got a question. Okay. And then here you can put in your value and you call this value question. This is your variable value, which will now go inside your process. You say okay. Okay. So and you could also save it. So once you save it and once you say okay, now this particular activity parameter is available for you. Okay. And that activity parameter now can be used by the process here. So we go here. If you see, this is the available parameter. If I want to use it for this particular process, I will select it. I will move it. Now I do have it. I'll say okay. Now say on this particular call, right? This particular call, I want to assign something. Say this thing, whatever it is. I go to my activity parameter and I want to assign it the demo that you give. So I set it demo and I say okay. So that's how I assign the variable value to my uh, to the REST call, like the one that I saw. So this would be your entire process of creation of an activity parameter and all the way for it to be called in a particular activity workflow or whatever bot process or user process that you are designing. So this is the entire thing, the entire flow of the activity parameter. Did this answer your question? Yeah, perfect. Great. Any other questions? Okay, so we will move ahead. Of course, I'm not going to deploy it back because I don't want to do that. So we have created this process. Everything is done. So what is the next thing that we would like to do? Is now I am happy with it. I want to publish it to test. So I'll go here. If I need any applications or something, I can add that, and those applications should be available on your particular Windows-based UI or your Windows-based system or a Windows-based server that you are running. That is the only point of writing something here and setting. I don't need anything. I release it to test. So now I have released my this particular meetup to test. Now I want to test it. I already have a test plan here. So let's create a new test plan. Yeah. This is something important. You should know like what the different steps do. Even if you're planning to appear for the hyperautomation, this is one of the questions that always come. Like, so you have to be very careful for this. So first of all, you give a name. You give a name. I can give it any name. So let's say we call it automation test. Demand. You can put a description. That's a very bad description, but yeah, we'll keep that. We'll go next. Then you define your activity parameters. So coming back to this, a particular builder, activity parameters can be defined during three times. One is when you are building your process. You are just building your RPA automation inside, you want to test everything and here. So it will by default take your default activity parameters that you have set up here. That's your value. That's all done. Second, when you are testing your application. So when you are testing your application, you don't like this value. So you want to change it. It gives you an option to change that value here while testing. That's why it's called a variable, because you can change it, your activity parameter. So you change it here and you run your test, and you can have different values going in. But in our case, we have the same point and we want to keep it the same. So that's there. So you can have your particular activity parameter set up. And then next, if you have a user task, like for example, say whenever there is a particular fault or something, I also want someone to check to see that if a ticket should be raised or not. So for that, I can make my process. But in that case, I need a user task in between, some user to go and do some XYZ process. In that case, we define a user task. And how do you want to say that the user needs to do something? You can send him an email, right? Or else within the system, inside the RPA, you will get something called as my user task. So my user task will have your list of tasks which you have not claimed. So my user task is different from my backlog. Backlog is the design, development, build, those things that you are supposed to do. That is the thing. My user task is the task that is given to you by the bot. That differentiation has to be very important. And similarly, if you are in a team, like for example, you are in a team of people, you can assign it to a team task. Then when you pick up the task, it will move to your user task and so on and so forth. So that will happen, and you know what is backlog and things. And my processes are the processes which you are currently working on. So this is a important thing to know. You select a user task. If you want to send a mail, I don't have any user task, so I don't do nothing, I do next. Then this is the part where you set up your bot. How do you want your bot to run? uh, the way to do it is to test in a secure session. uh, in my system, I have not set up a secure session, so I don't have it. But whenever we are doing a on-site or on a customer implementation or something like that, you do it on a secure session. Why do you do it on a secure session? You do it on a secure session because if, say, I am working on a particular system and the bot is also working on a particular system, and if we are trying to access the same file, either what I am doing will go wrong or the bot will not be able to complete it, and you don't want that thing to happen. That's why you have a normal session or a secure session. And as a best practice, it should always be deployed on a secure session. Yeah. But we could do this because I don't have a secure session assigned to me as a particular bot that I have in my system. So I can use this particular system or this. Because it's just a demo, we'll just use a secure session and do a next. Next. If you see, now this is my bot. Okay, the one that you see here. It's saying it's not deployable. Why is it not deployable? Is because I only have one bot license, and that is already which I'm using in my previous bot, the previous test that you see. So it gives you a message of not deployable because my bot is not set up to do it. So I'll go back, and also because it's a secure session. Now let me use a simple session. Go here. Now it says it's deployable because I don't have a secure sessions, but I can deploy it in a normal session. So I select that and I say finish. So once I do this, I do have a test plan inside my board. So the same way that we saw it running inside the production plan, it can also run a test plan. So here, if you go here, you can start test. You can either select automation test or normal test or both the tests that you want to select, and you can do an execute. So before you move into the production, you can test that. And similar to what I showed in production, you will get the same analytics here, that did it run, did it not run, and those parts. Yep. So once you make your test plan, you are happy with your test, everything is good, Then it's the time to move to your production phase. You publish to production and you say, I would like to release this to production. So you release to production. So it is very important to note here that there are two types of configurations that you could configure for this. You could configure a invocable run configuration, or you could create a run configuration. The difference is inside the run configuration, for example, say RPA was working on its own. It is not getting invoked from XYZ. In that case, you can set up a scheduler inside the RPA itself. Like for example, if the task of the RPA was only to look into XYZ places, take out data and generate a CSV file and move it to a folder, and that's all that the RPA had to do, without raising something on ServiceNow or using other SaaS connectors, then that can be entirely accomplished by RPA itself. You don't need a composer in that case. So in that case, you make a run configuration. And inside the run configuration, the run configuration will be similar to your test, but there will be one change. We'll see what that change is. So we'll give that name, whatever name, set up the activity parameter, go to the user task, give the user task, set up the execution, how we want to set up the execution. But there is an extra tab that comes in when you do a deployment to production, that is called a process trigger execution. Here is where you set up the schedule. So you can go here, you can give a name to your schedule, and you can set up your schedules here, and then you can then go to the next step. You can deploy to a bot and say, this is how we want to deploy it to a production. In our case, what we did is we deployed it to a invocable run configuration. So when you do a invocable run configuration, you see that particular scheduler tab is not available here, because you are not running it on a scheduler. You are running it in a invocable run configuration. So that is the difference between a invocable run configuration and when you do a normal configuration. So that is something which you should be very clear how we want to run the RPA. RPA on its own, you don't need it to be invocable. RPA when you want to access from other tools, yes, you want it to be invocable. So that's how you set your RPA process here. So once everything on the RPA side is done, then we went to this part and we made this flow. We have already made this flow, but I, I will just duplicate this flow into a new one for everyone to see the steps inside the composer. Our RPA is designed. So we go here. This is your composer UI. You say you want a new flow. You can either create from a template or from a scratch. This being a demo, let's start from scratch. We go on this, like if we remember the previous slides, you can either call a system event or a scheduler. What is a system event? Like for example, say there is a trigger that happened in your system, like say now ServiceNow ticket needs to be resolved. So for that also you could make a composer flow. What Whenever a ticket is created in ServiceNow with XYZ criteria, you could have a system event triggering the entire flow. We don't have that. We want to do it in a particular interval. In our case, we want to do it in every time in a shift. So we set up a scheduler. I keep it default 15 minutes. But what we want to do is like we want to do it every day once. So that's what we want to do. But in case we put it 15 minutes, we can set up the scheduler, set it to 15 minutes, and then you can have a system event. You select it. Here there are different connectors available inside the MuleSoft composer. You can have any of these connectors. You can use any of it. You can configure it in the way you want it. Inside the MuleSoft composer documentations, you will get exactly what are the requirements to set up this thing. So we do a MuleSoft RPA. I already have my connectors configured, but in case you don't have it, you can add a new connector configuration. So you can have your display name, your URL, your API key, so on and so forth. You set it, then the connector will be tested. If it is working fine, if it is working okay, if it is working okay, then you could do that. So let's use this test whatever we had. So our was inside learnings meetup. Output, we want to use the response in this flow. And in case you want to select additional fields, you can select this fields, that is your destination path, your file name, name source path, and everything, because it's a variable. Like for example, say at one instance you want to check one folder, in another instance you want to check another folder, so on and so forth, because the machines are different. So in that case you could proactively keep passing this variables here, and these variables will be passed into your invocable mule RPA. And then inside your system action, you can go here, you can have your service now. I already have a connection, so you can select that. Otherwise, you can go here, you can give your name, your instance URL, username, password. Once you select all that, your ServiceNow connector will be configured. Like you can see, it's extremely easy. It's just like one step or the other. But what we want to do is like we want to use a if else, right? That's what we want to do. So we can go and use an if condition, and field, we can see what field. So in our case, like I want to select this field. I want to say if this is not equal to this, then I want to add a condition. Oh, sorry. Then I want to add a connector here, and I'll go to this connector, and here I will put my service now, and I will set up my service now settings, and yep, there you have. So you can create a record. You can put your table name. I want to put it on incident. You have incident table. Select that. You can add fields. The fields that we added was short description. Select that, click it, say apply. So what now even Composer is doing is it has remembered the metadata. And if we see here, it has all the data here, what you want to put it. So it selected that, and that's it. So this is how you could make your Composer flow, which is extremely quick, very fast to be done. And once you do that, then you can do your test, which we of course we did previously. Now it won't work because I changed many parameters here and there, but this is how you do it. Any questions here till now? Because now we have only one more point to cover, and that point is how are these values of input field going inside your RPA? That is the last thing. That is something that I defined as global variables. I will show where it is defined in the RPA manager, and that would call a complete wind up on our entire process. Did you follow everything till now? I would love to say okay on the box if you are still there, or maybe slept off. I don't know. Perfect. Great. Good. Thank you. So I think that's great. So now we'll move on. Sandeep said to move on. I think we're getting extremely late. So we'll go here. There is oh, okay. So inside something called as a process automation, there is called the global variable. So you can define your global variables here. You can have your global variables set up, and these global variables can also be passed during your production time, during your test time, and so on and so forth. And these global variables can be linked to your production values. Like for example, if I go to my process, and we'll say we go to this particular one demo. Oh, sorry. We did something called Meetup. So we go to Meetup and go here. We already have a test which is created. And if you go to the activity parameter, rather than hard coding these values here, you could always link it to a global variable. I have already linked it. So I can unlink it. I can select a global variable that I have previously defined. And from that global variable, this was my destination path. So it was in my network shared. I select that and I say, okay. So in this case, I link my global variable. So uh, to this particular slide that you see, you could define your global variables outside in your manager. Your global variables can be passed to your activity parameter, and your responses from activity parameter can go back to your global variables. So all your inputs can be defined. If you want to talk to a particular RPA process on your global variable, map to your activity parameter and say there is an output, you will have your activity parameter mapped back to your global variable, and you could access that. So that is how you can access your values which are internal to the RPA with the global variables. So yeah, this is it, and this was the overall demo use case, how we use RPA, and yeah, why we use RPA and Composer solution with a use case scenario. Yep, that's about from me. If there are any questions till now, I'm open to answer.
We don't see any further questions, Sam, on the Q&A section, but like, yeah, it was a very great and interactive session. We learned a lot. Thanks for that.
Perfect. Yeah, nice. Thank you.
Yeah, Sam.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, Sam. Appreciate it. I think the demo was very detailed, and I feel, I can see. I think, people have taken away a lot of things from out of this. So thank you so much once again. Okay, appreciate it for your time and efforts. Okay,
Thank you.
so
Thank you.
hope to see you in another session, another interactive session, another different topic, something which we'll be taking up.
Sure.
Okay.
In case there are certain topics that like right now anyone from the audience want us to show or something, if there are any specifics, please reach out to any of us. We are available on LinkedIn. Otherwise you can put it on chat here or like that. Yeah, and maybe we could do that. Yeah,
I
about
think
exactly.
the feedback link will be sent to each one of them who have registered,
Oh,
and then
perfect.
there is an option for any suggestions for the next meetup, and also feel free to please fill that feedback form so that we can help you in our next sessions.
Yeah, perfect. So that was good. I hope I didn't over time it, but
Yeah, but
thank
Sam,
you.
yeah, it was worth it. Yeah, thanks for that.
Okay, Sam. Thanks,
Thank you.
others. Thanks, everyone, for joining on a Saturday. Okay, appreciate it. Thank you for the participation. And see you all in another session. Okay, thank you so much.
All right,
Perfect. Bye bye.
thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.